Welcome back to the Nickolas and Natali Show. This is the first episode of Season 2, and I hope you're as excited as I am. Season 2 is going to rock your world, and this episode is no exception. We have the legendary Josh Terry. Josh is a lifestyle design coach encompassing all things money, productivity, and purpose. If you're on TikTok and you don't live under a rock, you've seen his videos. He's amassed a following of 1.5 million, and after speaking with him, I have to say, he's a cool guy. He's humble, he's down to earth, he's wise, and he's always crafting ways to improve for himself and for others. Before we dive in, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share this episode with a friend that you know would benefit from the episode. Believe it or not, your shares and reviews help me reach out to guests, which will in turn bring more value on how to live a fulfilling life to you. Riddle of the week: why can't a leopard hide? Stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out. That was the intro. Now here is the episode. Hello and welcome. This is the Nickolas and Natali Show. I'm your host, Nickolas and Natali. Today we have a very special guest, Josh Terry. Josh, season's greetings.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I am happy to have you, and here's where I'd like to start. You have authority in the self-development space. You're a thought leader on performance and lifestyle design, but the story doesn't start here. And where I want to start it starts years back when you're at your worst, battling depression, chronic fatigue, anxiety, fibromyalgia. Student loan debt was chasing you down, and on top of that, one of your closest friends committed suicide. Walk me through how those circumstances in your life unfolded and how you saw it beginning to affect you.
Yeah, things were bad even before then. I've had lots bad. Before that, I was a workaholic. So when I graduated college at 22, I was a workaholic. Basically, I'd say on the edge of anorexia or anorexic. You know, I had the white lines in the fingernails kind of a thing. Things were not going well, and from 22 to 25, it just kind of kept going downhill. 25 is kind of the typical rock bottom for most first world males these days. So if you're 25 and listening to this and stuff sucks, take comfort. It's normal. But yeah, I was a fairly educated individual. I knew a lot of stuff. I was a relatively smart cookie. But I didn't have the beliefs and behaviors that were moving me in a positive direction. I was working as a music teacher at the time, and I'd gotten very little success in any of the things that I tried to pursue, and my health just was declining just very rapidly. It was a rough situation. That was when it was bad. Was something like that.
Mm. What do you think got you into the habits of those things? Because were they developed in college, this workaholism, or was it post college when there's like, okay, maybe I'm in a different environment now, and things aren't what they were, or maybe you went back to a hometown, or maybe it was a new town, something like that kind of stirred these habits. Where did it come from, do you think?
Yeah, I developed the workaholism in college, and the not eating part just came from like nothing more complicated than I was just working. I would just not eat.
Yeah.
I'd just work,
Yeah.
and it was not good. And by the time I graduated, um, I was burnt out. Uh, I I mean, one of the saddest days of my life was my graduation day. I walked down the aisle not celebrating. I walked down the aisle thinking, oh boy, I made a mistake. I kind of messed this up. And because I knew I was already done.
Yeah.
I had nothing left in me.
Mm.
And I got a random job in the construction world, and just did my job and stared at the wall during, break days.
Yeah.
And the habits that I got into that got me there were, well, there was a couple of things. One was I was taught on work ethic, which is generally positive, right? I was taught
Right.
to do my job. I was taught to do good work. But then, like, I combined that with a lot of big dreams. I wanted to be a rock star at the time. That was my big dream. And then you combine that with there's some truth to the idea of the secret, right? This idea of like manifestation, but there's also a dangerous side to it, which is like I had this dream and it was inspiring me, right? It really lit a fire under my ass. Like that's why I worked so hard when I was in college, was I was like, I want to learn everything I can so that I can, get rich and famous and do all the cool stuff and,
Yeah.
you know, be the person I want to be and all that. Is a great dream. The problem with the dreams like that is on one side it can inspire you, on the other is your ego can align with it.
Mm.
And when you see a vision of the gold medal, when you see a vision of the great thing that you could be off in the future, and you try to envision that over and over again, your identity starts to be formed as that person.
Mm.
And for some people this is really useful, right? If you envision yourself as the boxing champion, you're gonna punch harder. it's
Yeah.
it's just the truth. You're gonna. So in that case, manifestation is the way to go, like that's
Yeah.
really important. But there's other things that come with it, like I was terribly in debt at that point in my life, right? From the student loans, and then I got a job making very little money, and putting an extra $5 on my student loans didn't feel like a win. It felt embarrassing because I should be that rich and famous person that can pay it all off with one check.
Right.
And what happens when you have an action that's embarrassing is you don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, my life wasn't very good and I was a bit of a wreck of a person. And to put an extra $5 on my loans would have been an accomplishment,
Yeah.
but it didn't feel like one. It felt like an act of shame. So I didn't do it. So things got worse. So in my case, it wasn't really so much the habits as the beliefs, right? So I had this viewpoint that made me not see myself where I was, but see myself as somewhere else, and it shaped everything in how I looked at the world. Like like I couldn't pay my toll bills, and I wanted to be playing for stadiums of 50,000 people or whatever, and it put a lens on my view of the world that made it almost impossible for me to do anything right. Then compound that with the basics, right? So I didn't have a good diet. I tried to have a good diet, but for me, like I tried vegetarian, fruitarian, pescatarian,
Yeah.
Indian, Chinese,
All
like
of
all
them.
this stuff,
Yeah.
but none of it worked for me. I couldn't find the one. So that I was very unhealthy because I had lots of food sensitivities and things like that. And then that weakness and suffering made me tend to do less of the basic healthy things that you needed to go, of just hitting the gym and all things like that. So it was beliefs and diet, I'd say, were probably the two biggest things, and then those snowballed into a bunch of bad behaviors. That's kind of what led me to the rock bottom.
Yeah. I can definitely resonate with having the big dream and then aligning those things. And I think I've heard you word it, but like those tasks that you need to do in order to get to that place, they feel beneath you. I've totally experienced something like that. And I know I should do this because I'm not there. We're not the
Yeah,
rock star. We're not like the, or whoever it's supposed to be, that image for
yeah.
ourselves. But then it's like we're fooling ourselves. We're leading
and
ourselves
and,
on a bit.
and think about this in something really simple, so it's like, let's say you want to get into painting, right? There's a beautiful quote by Ira Glass that I'm going to butcher. That's something along the lines of, "We get into art because we have good taste." And the the quote is intended to talk about the fact that you have to make a bunch of bad stuff before you can create good stuff, and it's true, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
if you decide you want to get into painting, for example.
Yeah.
Well, one, yes, you get into it because you have good taste. You like good paintings. Well, now you have to make a bunch of bad ones, so that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's more is you didn't get into art thinking, I'm going to be a bad painter.
Right. Right.
you got into art thinking, I'd really like to be a good painter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now your ego is in this place of, well, I want to be a good painter. That's the type of person that I should be.
Hmm.
So now the next step is you need to be a bad painter. Well,
Yeah.
that's humiliating. That's
It's not
terrible.
gonna feel great. Yeah.
No. And it's the only way. And the way we can make it really obvious is putting it in the analogy of working out.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't work out because they don't want to look dumb, they don't want to look weak. And the reality is, if you pick up a bigger weight than you should, you just die. Like, that's how this
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that means you need to pick up the weight that's right for you, you know? And if you don't face up to where you are, you will never get fit. And it's the same in every aspect of life. There's no place where this doesn't apply. And if excuse me, and if our view on life puts us in a place that is different from us, from where we are, then we will misjudge our situations. We will make decisions that are not good ones because we don't have good data.
Yeah. Our self awareness of what's real. It's like the saying, the perception is reality. I can't tell you how many times like people perceive you a certain way, and it's like that's their what they really believe about you. And it's also similar for ourselves of like, what do we think about ourselves? How do we actually view the world? And is it true? Are we being honest? Are we that person, or are we not telling the truth to ourselves? It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, and expression, perception is reality. Like that's the fundamental thing that it's so true, and also it can get like so sick and twisted.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was the piece that I had off where it's like on one side of the coin, you can perceive stuff that is not real, and you can use that to make it real, right? And that's a lot of the fundamentals of the concepts of manifestation and things like that. And on the other side, you can perceive things that are not real, and then that can kill you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's you're being dumb, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's
Yeah.
like, that train is not coming toward me. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna run into some serious issues here, man, in a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
So it's like that perception is reality sentence. It's such an important one because you need to understand both sides of the coin. You need to understand that you need to see reality as accurately as you possibly can, and then that will put you in the right location, so you know that there's an oncoming train.
Yeah.
And then you need to perceive yourself potentially different from reality,
Yeah.
where you go, I could run as fast as necessary to get
Yeah.
out of the way of this train. It's like, maybe you're weak and small, and the reality is, most days you couldn't make it. But if you believe you can get out of the way of the oncoming train, well, now you can, right? Because
Yeah.
it does influence, you different chemicals run through your system, different capabilities come to bear. So this perception as reality thing is it's really tricky, where it's like on one hand, man, you really got to see reality or you're in big trouble. And on the other hand is you really need to see that things could be different. You really need to see that you could be more than you are.
Yeah. Having hope for tomorrow, but understanding today. The quote: "If you think you can, you think you can't. You're right in both instances," and that's very true. And
Yes.
here's another thing I got for you. You said that there are two things that have aided your self development journey. One of them being is stop doing things you're bad at. Totally fair. And number two is let go of your dreams. And it's kind of what we're talking about now. Let's dive further more into number two. And the ideology is that, if you align with those dreams, you could end up aligning your ego with the finished image. But for your journey, when you were starting out on TikTok, from what I've seen, the aim was to become that famous musician and rock star that you're talking about. But at some point, you turned a corner with a different style of content. Was this your version of letting go of the dream? And what was the internal process like of actually letting go of it?
Yes. Well, um, I wanted to be a rock star. One of my closest friends decided to take his life, and he was one of the biggest supporters of me. Like he was super supportive of me, and I knew enough about how life worked at that point that I knew I could let that either be something that made my life better or made my life tremendously worse. I could take the loss of that friendship and turn it into a reason to build resentment and hate the world and hate myself, or I could use it for something positive. And I kind of made a decision where I was like, okay, this has to be good because there's enough bad stuff
Yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also he would want that. And it was funny because the thing that ended up coming out of it, the thing that I ended up needing to do, uh, seems very counterintuitive. I had to give up on being a rock star. I had to go, you know what? Like this isn't working. Which, you know, sounds kind of counter to honoring somebody's memory, right? Because he was super supportive of that. But I knew much more deeply is he'd want me to have a happy life. He'd want me to, move in a positive direction. So I started to ask myself the question, how, like, okay, I can't do this big dream. Let's face up to that. How could I do something that's better than what I have right now? Because what I have right now really sucks. How could it be better? And that led me to kind of begin to have this mantra of what's the pathetic next best step, right?
Mm,
what
yeah.
what is the small realistic thing that I could do that would make tomorrow a little bit better than it was today. And the first thing ended up being like a trash bag a week. It's
Yeah.
like just cleaning my house, right? Just getting stuff out, right? I ended up going pretty far with that. I kind of became a minimalist for quite a while.
Nice.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning of it, you're like, I can't get rid of any of this stuff. It's so important. And at the end, you're like,
What more?
yeah, you should probably keep 7 shirts. Like, you probably should.
Yeah. Doing laundry three
uh,
times a week is getting hard.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You get addicted to it. Um, but I started to face up to where I was, and I realized, look, you've tried to be rich and famous your entire life. Like, you can't. You like not today, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
today. That was the thing that I started to tell myself. It's like you've played this game and you've lost so many times. You don't know how this works, and you're a mess. You can bear like nothing's working. Can you make something work? Right? It's like you're shooting for the stars and everything in between is lacking. Like that's not healthy. So I started to ask myself what I could make work. And it was just these little things, right? Take out the trash, start to, just explore basic healthy behavior. Instead of, can you work out every day? It was, can you take a walk every day, even if you're sad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you do very, very small things? And I started to develop those small things. And I started to build a life for myself. Um, I some like key moments where the rule of taking a walk every day that kind of became a religion for me. I started to take on breath work as a practice. I'd been an athlete for years, and so I'd done a lot of like kind of like difficult, aggressive things. It was these more like simple things that I started to take on that improved my life. Meditation, breath work, Wim Hof method, cold exposure, and I started to get things together, but I was still very, very ill. And then I discovered the carnivore diet, and that was something that worked for me. I heard about it on a podcast, and I thought, this is really stupid. I'll do it. Um,
I'm in. Sign me up.
yeah, yeah, because nothing else worked, right? And when
Right.
nothing else works, and you see no way out but the morgue, you'll try whatever. And so I tried it, and it worked. And to this day, I live off of basically meat, a little bit of fruit, and a little bit of dairy. But I was beef, salt, and water for 14 months, and it worked. And so I kept doing this. I turned put an extra $5 on your student loans into a victory, right? This Once I had this reality shift where I went, oh, you're not all that much, and you can't do the things that you want to do. That was the first time putting extra money on my loan payments felt like a victory as opposed to a failure. And the moment something feels like a victory, you want to do it again.
Yeah.
So I paid off all my debt.
Amazing.
And and I paid it off with the same poverty, close to poverty level salary. Like I was on the poverty line, and before I was living paycheck to paycheck. But when I switched my mindset to, hey, you're not all that much. No, you can't do all these things that you want to do, and this right here is a victory. I started just looking at different places and behaving in different ways. Because when you want to be a rock star, you feel like you should spend money like a rock star, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every time you save money, it feels like an act of shame. It feels like an act of unworthiness, where it's like I did a bad thing. But when you go, oh, you know what, you are kind of living on the poverty line and you're barely handling anything. Well, now saving money is a victory, right?
Yeah.
So all these things started to shift, where what was a win became a loss, and what was a loss became a win. And then through that, I built a life for myself. I got to a point where I had daily habits that were nourishing me. And for the first time since I was a child, I had experiences where my body felt okay, where I felt okay, where I started to have like shockingly fleeting moments of happiness. Like it was super
Yeah.
weird, It's
Yeah.
like,
This is what I've been missing out on. This feels great.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what? You can have fleeting moments of joy? That's a thing.
Yeah.
Like people talk about joy being not sustainable. It's like, hey man, like if you get a fleeting moment, that's pretty good. Like
Yeah.
if you talk about joy being not sustainable, you haven't seen what happens when you don't even have the fleeting moments, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I started to have like moments of happiness and moments of feeling okay, and my moments that were low weren't quite so low. And then I started to invest. I started to build up my skill sets, and I got to a point where I had my retirement investing in place. I had my savings starting to happen. I had a safety net. A lot of these things were financial at this point because I had a lot of financial anxiety. And but I could see that I was moving on a positive trajectory on multiple areas of my life. And I remember this was around the time of COVID. I remember taking a walk. And COVID was one of the best things that ever happened to me, by the way, because I was
Oh
an
wow.
introvert, and like I like suddenly like I didn't have to like be around people. I could take walks and look at the grass, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
This is great.
Um, yeah, like my brain started to open up and have more ideas and stuff. But I remember taking a walk and thinking, I don't need to be famous. I don't like no, the life is not turning out how I wanted it to, but I'm building a life for myself. This life is real, it's meaningful, and it's worth living. And I went viral that month because that's how the universe works.
Yeah. The realization hit and then the response.
So in response to what you said earlier about like trying to get famous, the answer is no. It worked once I stopped trying. Once I started to let go.
That's wild.
It really is. And that isn't to say you don't have to direct your energy, right? Like I directed my energy towards TikTok. I made a video and it took
Yeah.
off. It went viral, right? But literally, like the first video that went viral was the video where I stopped trying the most. Whereas
Wow.
where I did a whole bunch of things, and this will come to the concept of learn to give up on the stuff that you're bad at. I made a whole bunch of decisions that was me just going, well, can I cuss on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, it's just me going, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's like just like let go of this and do what works. But the only way I could have a fuck it mentality was not needing it, right? Was realizing, okay, I have the life that I want, right? Because if you feel like you don't have any friends and you need all the friends that you want, you're going to behave in a certain way towards those friends that are going
Yeah.
to make them not like you.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel like you
Smother
have to
'em.
say all the right things. You're gonna smother them. You're gonna do a bunch of things wrong. But if you feel like you have enough friends and you realize, you know what, it's okay if I lose a friend. Like I don't want to, but I can. It's fine. Now you can take risks in your conversation and you can say the things that could offend but instead delight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the core of what's required for any creative endeavor. The core of any creative endeavor, you have to have this lack of neediness so that you can come from a place of abundance and you can just sit there and go, what would I like to make today?
Mm.
And this is the same thing that happens in conversation where you can go to a dinner party and you go like, I don't need these people here.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk to these people here, but I am here. So what would I like to say? And then
Mm.
you come up with something delightful to say, right? This is how life works. And and it's the same thing when you go to make a painting where you go like, I don't have to uh make this painting to survive, right? So under that premise, what do I want to make a painting about?
Yeah.
All right, and then you can do something from that creative place in your mind. It has to come from this I have enough mentality. And there's a bunch of things to balance this, of course, right? You have to have your audience in mind. You have to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
say the stuff that makes people happy. You have to make the art that people like, so on and so forth. There's lots of disclaimers, lots of flip sides of the coin. But this is a piece of the puzzle, is learning to understand that, hey, you're a competent individual that can take care of himself and you've got what you need. And okay, based on that premise, what would you like to say? And from that place, I started to say stuff that people liked.
Or
And
resonated
that's
with.
when it's yeah, and that's when it started to take off.
Hi, friends, this is Nickolas Natali, and every Friday at 6 a.m., I bring you a tasty episode to help you live a more fulfilling life and level up your business. If you are tuning in right now, consider this your sign to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave a review, screenshot it, and share it to your Instagram, tagging me at Nickolas Natali so I can reshare it. Then send this to 2 of your friends that you think would enjoy the episode. All right, back to it. That's awesome. That's incredible. It's not a once I have this thing, then I'll be X or Y or Z. You know, it's
Yeah.
I already have this thing without it, and I don't need it, and that like frees me up for the choice. And I
Yeah.
also really like how you talked about, it's starting small or not even small, wherever you're at, and that leads to exponential growth. Like think about all the habits that you have now that started so small. Like that doesn't happen unless you do that first little baby step.
Yeah, compound growth based on consistent action. And let me tell you real quick how extreme it was when I wanted to be a rock star, I used to think, you know, when I get famous, I think I might start putting my thoughts out into the world.
Wow.
Like people might, I feel like that could help. And but I mean nobody would want to listen to that, until,
Wow.
I had the notoriety of some accomplishment that would make me cool.
Yeah. That's
But instead, I face up to, what, this thing that you're trying to do isn't working. Just do what you can. And I
yep.
started to do that, and it worked.
Those beliefs, it's almost like agreements with ourselves that are just not true. It's weird though, because it's like lies that when we say out loud, they don't sound great, but it's something we tell ourselves all the time to where we believe it's true. And if we said it to somebody else, they'd be like, why do you believe that? Like,
Yeah.
why would you even say that about yourself?
It is true that if you have a Ferrari, she's more likely to look in your direction and talk to you. The fact that you don't have a Ferrari is a terrible reason to not try to talk to her.
Yeah, exactly. It's those beliefs though. It's like, yeah, super limiting beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go here. Here's something that you're up to these days. You help creative people who may be overwhelmed, something going on in their life they're trying to figure out. They're trying to find purpose, productivity, and clarity. And you help them figure out what they want, set a boundary around it, set what they don't want, and then take a small step forward. And you boil it down to this formula, which is desire plus boundaries equal abundance. And starting with the first piece of the formula, how can we find our desire?
Yeah, so the core thing that I work on essentially is lifestyle design, right? So how do you build a life that you actually want to live? And then that that thing that I work on is driven by an interest in learning theory, an interest in development, like how does a human become better? And that formula is the recipe, so far as I can tell. It's one of the fundamentals of how a human learns. Desire plus boundaries equals abundance. You have to know what you want, and then what you will do or give up to get it. And then it has to be it has to be what you will do or give up so that you can actually go carry it out and then get a result. And that result, if it's positive, it creates abundance. But if it's negative, if you're doing this formula right, what you actually will do or give up to get it, then the result is still positive because it gives you feedback,
Yeah.
and that feedback then in turn gives you the capability to have more powerful and more insightful desires. And then from there, you can continue the formula over and over and over again and create a positive loop. So to answer your question, how does one figure out what they want?
Yeah. How do you figure out what works for you? What your actual true desires are?
Yeah, so you can start by sitting down in the middle of your floor and asking yourself the question, what do you want? And what'll happen at first is you'll run through a Rolodex of cravings. You'll think, I want cookies, I want prostitutes, I want cocaine, I want some little bit of heroin to go on top of the cookies, like,
Yeah.
whatever it is that floats your boat, whatever
Right
thing. I don't like. I want to go watch Netflix. I want some pizza. You'll list off a bunch of stuff, and it's very important to understand the difference between a desire and a craving. It's very simple. A craving is something that you want, and when you get it, you are less. A desire is something that you want, and when you get it, you are more. And so you sit down and you do this exercise, asking yourself what you want, and you just set aside the cravings. You go, okay, cool. I know I want, I know I want hookers right now, but that's not for right now.
Save that for later.
Yeah, save that for later. I know you want pizza, but it's like that's not what we're talking about right now. Um, what do you actually want? And what happens is after you go through the Rolodex, I need to stop saying that word because hardly anybody's going to know what a Rolodex is in a couple of years. When you get through your list of cravings, what you're going to be met with is terrifying, deafening silence. You're going to go, wait, I don't know. I mean, you might have like a couple like big dream things of like, I want to change the world and I want to cause world peace. But for most people, there's going to be nothing. And it's going to be really disturbing. And if you have the patience and the bravery to sit with it for a little bit, a quiet voice might kind of pipe up in the back of your head that says something like, a glass of water would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then get up and go get a drink of water and then sit back down immediately and ask yourself the question again. And if you've done this, what's happened is you've created a rep on the development of desire. Because here's the thing is in Western culture, we have a lot of perceptions around what desire is, and they're mostly negative. We think, oh, this person wants a bunch of bad stuff and desire is evil and blah, 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 blah. Desire is not fundamentally evil. Desire is a trainable part of who you are. Think of it as a muscle. It can be trained. And the way you can explain this is super simple. If you want to touch a hot stove and then you touch a hot stove, now you no longer want to touch a hot stove, right? This is pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. you can want something and then no longer want that thing.
Yeah.
And if you do this exercise and you sit down and you ask yourself what you want and you come up with something and then you go act on it and you sit down and do it again, you've now given yourself a rep and you've said, okay, you can want things. It's possible. So now that you know that you want stuff, now what do you want? I mean, now we know it's okay to want stuff. Now what do you want? And your brain goes, oh, well, I can think a little bit bigger. you know what, my back's really sore.
Yeah, yeah,
It'd be really nice if you like maybe we could stretch a little bit. And you go, okay, let's stretch. It's sort of a
yeah,
dialogue with yourself,
yeah,
and it's the dialogue with the 4-year-old tantrum
yeah.
just falling apart part of you that you haven't listened to for most of your life, and and but and that part is afraid to speak because you've been ignoring your desires. Most people have been ignoring their desires, and if you continue to do this, eventually your brain goes, you know what, this project here, I'd really like to get it done. It would be meaningful. Not, oh, you should get this project done. It's this project right here, this specific one. I like it. There's something here that matters. And it's not like this like mile. It's not this like, you know, you know, oh, I want to do this because um
It would look
it's
good,
not a
or
craving based thing. It's not a it's deep. It's so deep I don't have words for it. It's something in the core of your being goes, there's something worth working on here. And then you go, okay, let's go work on it. And guess what? You'll work on it and you'll get it done. And it'll either have a terrible result or a positive result. And then that part of you that you listened to will go, oh man, I was really wrong. Or, oh man, I was really right. But either way, it was validated that it was okay to listen to that part of you. So it will get educated and strengthened. And you do this enough, and pretty soon you have a 5-year plan.
yeah. I think listening to that voice that we've been ignoring for so long is there's so much truth in that because we ignore it for so many reasons, whether we're busy or we don't want to admit we do have things that we want, or we feel uncomfortable being still enough to listen to it. But it's such a insightful thing to actually sit down and realize, no, I it's like almost realizing potential that you have, but knowing where to direct it, and it doesn't come from anywhere else but that little voice in the back of your noggin.
Yeah, you have to be willing to sit with your demons a little bit if you want to actually figure out what you want. And you have to be willing to make some mistakes. Because you have to sit with your demons because most of what you want is somewhere inside of the Jungian shadows to some degree, where it's like, oh, I'm not sure if I want that thing. That's
Yeah,
that's connected to 5 things that I was told was bad when I was a child, but I
yeah,
think
yeah,
this is good.
yeah, yeah,
It's that stuff, right? And then it's close to the demons, and then also it's a thing you haven't touched most of your life,
mm-hmm.
so you're gonna address it badly when you
Yeah,
deal with it. So it's like, oh, okay, I think I actually wish I were talking with my friends this way.
yeah,
It's like I wish I were standing up for myself more. I wish I were talking to my friends this way. Well, are you going to do it well the first time you do that? No, you're going to do it horrifically.
yeah,
You're gonna like get that one trigger word that the friend has always said that you've never responded to, and you go, okay, I'm trying to stand. All right, now I'm gonna lash out. you know
yep, yep,
because he said that thing again, and I know I'm supposed to stand up for myself, so here's all of my anger from the past 5 years on that subject. And it's like, that's better than no
not,
anger,
yeah,
but it's messy. So you have to be willing to sit with your demons, and you have to be willing to make mistakes.
yeah. And people are messy. They're definitely messy. Let's do the second part of the formula. What does a strong, healthy boundary look like? And that could be in regards to relationships, commitment to goals, work, any of those things. How do we know?
It's what you will do or give up in terms of action.
Mm,
So that's why I said you have to have a desire and be willing what you will do or give up to get it. So that's what it has in terms of like internal action. Um, then there's a whole bunch of other elements of boundaries. Boundaries are the fortress. They're the protective element in your life, and you need walls that
yeah.
keep things from coming in that shouldn't be coming in, And then you need walls that keep things from going out that shouldn't be going out,
Yeah.
right? So if somebody throws a spear at you and it lands inside your, it gets you.
Yeah.
Which is going to kill you? The fact that the spear is inside of you, or the fact that you're now leaking, right?
Yeah.
They're both bad.
Yeah.
Things going in and things going out can be bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need boundaries in terms of like, I won't let somebody say this thing to me, right? I won't let somebody do this thing to me. And then you need boundaries in the sense of, I refuse to do that. I refuse to bleed my time in this manner. I refuse to, let go of this resource, help in this way that, I'm being guilted into that I don't actually need to be doing. Boundaries are very complex. There's a whole bunch of different pieces to it. But if I were to sum it up, I think I would say it's the order that makes things able to work. I'm not going to say it makes things work, because you need the spark of life from chaos for things to work. But it's the order that sets up a framework where things could function. All right, that's boundaries. So it's the protective element of protecting from the outside world, protecting the inside world. It's the orderly element of, we're going to do things in this way. This is how the system should run. It's a whole bunch of stuff. It's all of those pieces.
Yeah.
I like to think of it through the framework of order and chaos. So when I think, how do I want to develop boundaries, I think, okay, how do you want to start to establish order in your life, right? Where are these pieces going to take place? Is it going to be in your behaviors? Is it going to be in your interactions? Is it going to be in the systems, the habits? What is it? And each time you establish a point of order, what happens is you tend to get a little bit better at establishing points of order, because once again, you're getting reps.
Mm-hmm.
And reps matter. So if you find yourself able to establish habits, then you start playing with establishing habits. It's like, maybe you're really bad at establishing boundaries with your friends. It's like, I'm a super big people pleaser and I don't know how to deal with that piece. Okay, well, can you take a walk every day? Are you really good at that part? It's like, oh yeah, I'm really good at that. It's like, okay, so you start to establish the point of, I take a walk every day. Well, guess what? Now nobody can tell you not to take a walk every day.
Yeah.
Because that's your job, and that's the habit that you've established. That's the order that you've built in powerfully. Well, now that carries over to your relationship with your friends. It's like, hey, come to this thing. Sorry, I'm taking my morning walk. There we go. Like, that worked, right?
Yeah.
And to touch on a thing that I don't think I went into enough earlier, I said, learn to give up on all the stuff that you're bad at. That's what I'm getting at right here.
Yeah.
Is figure out the things that you're absolutely miserable at, and if you can, just don't work on them. Work on something that you can work on. And so it's like, if you're good at establishing habits, just start establishing habits, and then go, okay, so I'm trying to establish these habits to have some sense of order in my life that's gonna keep me functional. And then when some weak point comes up, go, okay, how could these habits strengthen the parts that I'm having trouble with? And pretty soon it'll start working, because that's how the universe works.
Yeah, the more you do it. I think boundaries for me in the past year and a half it's been exactly what we've talked about. It's been really messy in the very beginning, but it's like realizing that if I don't do these things, my time won't be my own, my feelings won't really be expressed, which is important, and none of the things that I actually want to achieve will ever happen. And it's all about I think a lot of times, at least for me in my life, it's like putting the wall up to not let things in. Hey, I need this time. Hey, I have to do this thing. I don't want to say that it's difficult, but I do think, what's the right word here? It takes a level of strength. And I also have found that the stronger the boundaries I have in place, almost the more respected my boundaries become. Because
Oh yes.
if I let somebody, if I'm like, hey, no, I can't do it at that time, but you know what, actually just come ahead, let's just do it. It's like, okay, now I know that that thing isn't that serious to you, and I can always do this over and over again. And there's a guy, his name's Seth Godin. He's like a really big guy in the
Oh
marketing
yes.
space. His thing is he replies to like all of his emails. And I've like reached out to him. Hey Seth, like really, like would you have time to do this or that? And it's always no. I don't have time for this because I have X, Y, or Z. And it makes me respect that guy even more every time. It's a necessity. You have to protect your time, and you have to be willing to say no to certain things that aren't the right fit.
Seth Godin is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why this particular thing comes to mind, but I remember him telling a story once, in a podcast or something, where he made a comment about chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
and he said something along the lines of, uh, which was great. It was exactly the vice that I was looking for. Which is so Seth Godin of a phrase to
Yeah.
say, but it was like I'm even organizing which vices I
Yeah.
indulge in, right?
Yeah.
you
This
know
little
it,
piece of chocolate I will accept.
yes, yeah, it's great. It's like this. I'm looking for a vice. What can I do here? Okay, this is the one. Yeah, but yeah, this idea is of like embracing the order that you can, embracing the boundaries that you can, and starting to get stronger there. It touches on something that's really near and dear to me is this idea of like you aren't that much.
Mm.
What you could be is incredible, and also you are kind of incredible right now, but also you're not that much. And if you can let those two ideas live simultaneously in your mind, you can do incredible things because there's usually one side of the coin or the other that people depend on. They either depend on this like motivational like, oh, like you can do anything. I'm so like just shoot for the stars, you know, live your
Yeah.
dream, so on and so forth. And then the other side is like this like original sin of like you are a
You're
pathetic worm
horrible.
of you terrible person and you need to be better.
Yeah.
And it's this like just obey the laws and do the right thing and shame on you if you don't do anything else. And the reality is those two things live simultaneously within us.
Yeah.
We are incredibly delicate, flawed creatures
Yeah.
that just the tiniest, you know, gust of wind on a glacier can just destroy us. It's like, one little thing moves in this part of the universe and 1,000 people die. A big wave and happens and tens of thousands of people die. It's like a tsunami, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just a little wave.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a little wave in the ocean,
Yeah.
but it's like just thousands upon thousands of people just destroyed. Humans are just incredibly delicate, and yet they're just astonishingly triumphant, transcendent individuals.
Yeah.
Where one of my favorite pieces of ad copy ever written was by, like, I think it was Ernest Shackleton in an old newspaper. Something like "Need brave souls for perilous journey."
Oh my gosh.
Uh, Actually, I think I can pull it up. Let me see.
Let's see.
Do
We
I
have
have
to
it?
know. We need to know the truth. Perilous soul.
Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sold.
I'm in. No offer for money, no pay,
Yeah.
nothing. He had more applications than he could deal with because humans are transcendent.
Yeah.
When they know a struggle is coming, they're like, yeah, bring it on. And you can find photographs from years and years ago of men, past the Arctic Circle, breaking ice in front of a ship,
Mm.
shirtless.
Mm.
It's just like, yeah, we've been here for a couple of weeks. It's like, I'm hot.
We gotta take care of this.
Yeah, it's like we got to get a little farther north. It's like,
Yeah.
fine, get my shirt off and break this ice. It's fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
There's an amazing scene in oh, it's a TV show. Highly recommend it about Chernobyl. Chernobyl, that's the one. Where it's about the breakdown of the nuclear reactors and them dealing with this
Mm-hmm.
and it's an amazing dramatic retelling of it. That's just incredible acting. But there's the scene where some government official goes to a bunch of these Russian men in a mine and says, "We need you to dig this tunnel underneath these nuclear reactors to basically save Russia." It's
Yeah.
like basically, if this doesn't happen, we're all gonna die,
Yeah.
and we need you to save us, and we need you to be great and mighty for us. And it was like, but it was, all of this was said underneath all of this propaganda. Like, it was worded in such a way
You'll
that
be
it
a
was like,
hero. You can take
you're
on the
gonna be a
challenge.
hero. Yeah, you're gonna do great things for everybody. And then at the end of it, there was some question that the lead miner asks, that the underlying framework of the question is, none of us are getting out of this alive, right? Like, we're all gonna die if we do
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
And the political propaganda guy gives some answer that's like, oh, no, 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 but underneath it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gone.
This ain't like, we're all fucked. And there's this scene where, like, I think he, like, has a vodka bottle in his hand for it. If not, there's a metaphorical vodka bottle
Yeah.
where he just like tosses it to the side, looks at his buddies, is like, all right, let's do it. It's like, fine, Mother Russia, we'll like, whatever, we'll make it work. That's the capability of humanity, is this capacity to just take on just astonishing challenge.
Yeah.
And it's these two things living simultaneously, of, we are incredibly weak and small and can barely do anything, and we are just the heroes of we're these young gods that can just do incredible things. And if you can hold those two things in your mind simultaneously, you can start to face up to this fact that, like, yeah, you can't do everything. You have a lot of weaknesses in your life. And maybe you could just let go of some of those and go, like, what could you do today? What could you do that would, be worthwhile? And then you can act out the hero's journey on that one little piece that you can do. You can become transcendent in that small way that you can be transcendent, where it's like, it's like, I can pay my toll bills. And it's like, good for you.
Yeah.
Go you. You didn't do that yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm so proud.
You did it.
And it's like, you do that a couple times, and now you're the person who can pay toll bills, right?
Yeah.
And you do this in the gym, you do this in your relationships, you do this in all the areas where you can. And pretty soon, you become just astonishingly powerful. You become the person who can do things that blow other people away, where they go, how did you do it? Where it's like, this doesn't make sense. And that's how.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're touching a lot on, like, identity too, how we
Mm.
tie these weaknesses into who we are and our worth, and our triumphs into who we are and our worth. And something that I really enjoy your perspective on is failure, and it's come up a little bit throughout this conversation, but the three things that you've mentioned before in order for failure to be healthy is, it must be detached from your identity, informative, give you some feedback, and something you can recover from. I want to touch on the identity portion of it, because if I'm someone who aligns my identity's worth with my failures, how can I move toward being able to say, like, okay, this is just an experience. This isn't me. I didn't get the job from the interview, but that doesn't mean the next one I'm going to fail. It doesn't mean, I am a failure. It's a feedback loop. How do we detach ourselves from those things?
So let me see if I can connect this to what we've talked about so far. So this desire plus boundaries equals abundance, this concept, this formula. Um, uh, Detach from your identity, something you can recover from, and I'm of course blanking because I said it. What was the other thing that I said?
Informative.
Informative. Thank you. It's how I establish credibility, is I forget everything that I say.
You're making me repeat it, so I'm like, yeah. That's good. It's
Yeah.
a teaching lesson, is what's happening.
Yeah. So the boundaries element, what you will do or give up to get it, that is the small enough that you can recover from piece.
Mm.
It's, you need to actually pick something that's like you're willing to do, and it's like this is reasonable, right? Like the things that you attempt in life need to be this way, where it's like, okay, I'll try this thing that, if I try it and I fail, I could probably try again. That's what most of your tries in life need to be.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you need to whatever. Excuse me, allergies.
Need a little break from things. I got it.
Every once in a while you need to invade Normandy and take the big risk, but most of the time you need to take the thing that, if you try it and it doesn't work out, cool. So that's the small enough that you can recover from piece. um, the informative piece is the abundance piece. It's the result piece, where it's like you get a result and it's clear and you go, oh, that's what happened, right? So that's the informative piece. The detached from your identity piece is something separate. It's starting to look at the world from a standpoint of a viewpoint of experimentation and play. So the concept of experimentation is the scientific method, where you look at it and you go, okay, this is a lab experiment. It's not me. These attempts that I'm making, they're a lab experiment, which means I'm going to need to make a lot of experiments. And then from that data, I will then afterwards integrate what I've learned into me, right? Because normally the way people think is, I need to try stuff and that's me, right? Whatever I try, that's my identity. And if I fail, I am a failure, right? But if instead you go, okay, I'm going to try this stuff. This failed, this failed, this failed, this didn't. I have learned. Now you're a person who learns, that's way better than being a failure. At least for me personally, I prefer it. I do the failure thing a lot, like nobody's perfect, but I prefer being the person who learns. And if you think that way, you have the identity of the person who learns, you're more powerful. You're more likely to move in the right direction. Going back to the first thing we talked about, which is the lens through which you view the world, right? If you view the world through the lens of I am a person who learns, it's much more powerful lens than viewing the world through I'm a person who fails, right? So then that's the scientific method piece, and then the other is the play piece, which is, it's sort of like the same. It's experimentation, but it's whether I fail or succeed, we're having fun here. We're playing a game. This is exploration. What happens next? Ooh, you threw the rock in the puddle and it splashed. Do it again. Let's see what happens. Will it splash again? And that is fundamentally necessary in order for us to move forward. If you look, I don't think there is a mammal juvenile in existence that doesn't learn through play. I could be wrong, but like tiger cubs and are dolphins mammals? No, dolphins are.
I think
I get confused about dolphins and whales. Yeah, I think that's a whole different thing.
I don't think that's right. I don't think that's.
Yeah, a whole different thing. But it was the first thing that came to mind. Dogs, cats, buffalo, cows. You look at a calf and the thing is playing. It's exploring. Yeah. It's not some random immature thing to be shed as soon as you can get the adulthood to manage it.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental core element of human development. And you know when you play a game and you fail, it's just funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not playing a game and you fail, it's not funny.
Yeah.
So you need to be playing games. And so viewing failure from the frameworks of science experiments and play, I think, are critically important to separating them from this identity of being a failure. Because when you view them from the viewpoints of science and play, now you're just a person who plays and you're a person who learns stuff. And that's really valuable.
I love that analogy, especially playing the game part makes things light. Like I'm thinking about every time if I hop on Fortnite and I fall to my death, that's hilarious. But if I fell to
Yes.
my death in real life, I would not be I would not be laughing. But the metaphor is still there. We are moving on to the final question of the podcast. Josh, you made it. You did it. But before we dive into it, I want to acknowledge you for all that you're doing. I think you're doing a great service to, I want to say to the world, but to people. You are so great at articulating these thoughts that are immediately applicable. We can apply these theories and like philosophies and ideologies to our lives, and they better us. And I mean, that's why I have been so drawn to your content, is because it's so useful and it's so digestible. So I just want to acknowledge you and encourage you. Like, thank you for being an original thought leader on all of these things, because it's helping a lot of people, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's so meaningful to hear. I mean, I think it's been an incredible journey for me, and I'm so happy that it's useful. It's really really it just makes me very glad.
Good. I'm glad as well. The final question of the podcast is you're the self-development Santa Claus for a day, and you get to sneak into everyone's home while they're sleeping, and you get to tape a truth that you live by onto everyone's ceilings, so when they wake up it's the first thing they read. What truth would you tape to everyone's ceilings?
Can I start by rewinding just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely.
It turns out that dolphins are classified as marine mammals.
Yes, now we know.
So I feel so much better now to know that I did not completely put my foot in my mouth on that one. I don't know what the marine part changes about the mammals, but the word mammal was in there. So that's
Definitely
good to
lying.
know. Um,
Put that in the
so
pocket.
yeah. So that helps. And where I want to go with the close of this is what I'd put if I were the self help Santa is that there's no one coming to save you.
Mm.
There's no one coming to help you. And that's both terrifying and incredibly exhilarating. And I don't know, it's a kind of funny view for, somebody that's spending most of his time these days trying to help.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is life is super complicated. It's really hard. And if you think somebody can fix it for you, you're off your rocker. It's too complicated of a problem. You have to do everything you can to fix it yourself, or you're in deep shit.
Yeah.
It's really hard to fix life. I'm not saying it can't be effortless. There are things you can do that can turn it into an effortless life. There are things you can do that can make life, elements of life at least, feel easy. But you have to work really hard to do this. And if you think somebody is coming to save you, you won't. If you think that, if I just wait until, you know, X friend, helps me, X government official, X, boss, like whatever person it could be, the only thing that will happen to you is you will become a victim.
Yeah.
That is the only only path available to you. With the exception of luck. I
Yeah.
mean, like if you want luck to drive your life, fine. But I think luck is the thing you're supposed to optimize for, not the thing you're supposed to depend on. Um, but but if you hope or think that your life is going to be fixed by other people saving you, then you will become you will lower your boundaries. You'll become suggestible to anyone who offers anything. Your life will be defined by other people's plans because your life couldn't work out unless other people fixed it for you. So therefore, you must follow other people's plans. Uh, your life will not be yours to live, and people will take advantage of you. And if you might have thought you were a victim before, you will become a victim. It's a core piece of victim mindset is to think that somebody else could save you, and nobody's coming to save you. And if you know that, you can also learn that nobody's coming to stop you.
Mm.
Nobody's going to interfere, at least in a way that you can't transcend. Nobody's coming to tell you you can't make yourself better. You can't get yourself out of this hole. In fact, nobody cares because it's a big, wide, cold universe, and that's fine. And if you know this, then you can look at where you are to come full circle, take stock, and accept reality for what it is, and understand, like, oh, I'm in this place. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, maybe you're miserable, maybe you're pretty happy. You're in this place, wherever you are. How can you take it and make it a little bit better? I think that's a useful perspective.
That's powerful. No one is coming to stop you. That is powerful. I'm definitely going to be holding on to that one. Josh, where can we find you on the internet? Where's the best place for people to reach out to you? You have coaching going on. I think anybody would be lucky to have you as a coach. Where can they find those things? Best links, give it to us.
Yeah, man. I mean, probably the simplest place is Instagram. Josh Terry Plays.
Okay.
Uh, right now my links are kind of messy. Uh, JoshTerryPlays.com as well works. But yeah, the main thing that I'm doing is I'm working on a sort of a membership thing where everybody just gets on online, gets on Discord, and we chat about some of these concepts. And I've got some courses inside of there that are helping people out. Again, kind of the focus is lifestyle design, and I work with groups and individuals on how to be better.
Awesome. All of those links will be in the show notes. Be sure to check them out. Say hello to Josh. Josh, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye. That was the episode. You just listened to it. Josh Terry bringing down the house. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and share this episode with a friend. It'll take 5 seconds and it'll be a great use of your screen time. These 5 seconds will be well worth its little slot in your 4 hours. The real reason you're still here, you want to know the answer to the riddle of the week. Why can't a leopard hide? Because they're always spotted. I bet you missed those. I do. I bet you've been thinking, where's the riddles? Where'd they been? They've been right here. And I've been stockpiling some goodies. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next Friday at 6 a.m. Be kind, be strong, be disciplined, and I will see you next week.